Listen, laugh, and learn with Sacha and Ish as they share their experiences, thoughts, and tips to build skills that are not so average and a career that's not so ordinary. This is the Not So Breakfast Show.
All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one where we are talking about self-reflection. And if you are going to self-reflect, how do you do it? How do you do it in a great way? I always think of chanting when I think of self-reflection. I always want to put my fingers together and go, but I don't think that's quite what we're talking about here. But anyway, that's where we're going to head today, Sash. So anyway, how are you? What's going on?
Yes, hello and welcome to myself. I welcome myself to the show. I am on reflection. See what I did there?
I like it.
On reflection, it's a tough day for me today. I have just said goodbye to my son, who is going to live overseas in America. And the bizarre thing is, I'm leaving, not him. So he doesn't leave till Friday, but I'm leaving today to go to Melbourne. So I'm saying goodbye to him, knowing that he's still going to be here, but he won't be here when I get back. I was reflecting on what a mixture of emotions I have. Obviously I'm excited for him. Yay, this is him living his dream and getting his education and doing his do, and that's super cool. And I'm really sad for me and how possible it is to have all of those thoughts at once. And I've been doing some reflecting and asking myself, why do I have that mixture of emotions? And yeah, it's a really nice kind of process to go through. And people have been helpfully sending me cheesy quotes that I love. And it's things like, we do not build mighty ships to keep them safe in the harbour. Variations of those kind of things. And another one is also about a ship, and it says, a ship is safe in the harbour, but it is not what it's built for. You go, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about reflecting today, and I don't promise not to cry.
Oh, it must be weird. It must be weird because I guess you and Chris are empty nesters, so to speak.
So I'll come home to a big house with just Chris in it. So it's a whole transition thing going on for us, which is interesting. And you know how much I love words. I was reflecting on this as I was driving away from Tiger, was that I'm the wordsmith. Words are my thing. And as I went to, I was hugging him and I just wanted to speak some powerful words into his life as my parting gesture. And I had nothing. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. Do the right thing. Please take care. And that's all I had. That's all there is. Please take care. Do the right thing. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. Nothing fancy, nothing flash, just a kind of a heartfelt, don't get shot in America, son. That's what it sort of boils down to.
Yeah, I suppose it just must feel that much further away as well. I mean, Portia, you can jump on a plane pretty much any time you want and go see her. But yeah, wow, that's big, Sash. That's big.
It's big and exciting, and the world is close. So it made me think about, in the olden days, people used to get on ships and go to England, and it took you 6 months to get there, or however long it took, and you go, oh wow, they must have had such an ability to deal with all of those conflicting emotions and in ways that are just so different now, because realistically, you're never more than 40 hours from anywhere, right?
Well, I guess also with technology now being able to Zoom and Teams call and, all of that stuff that we can do now. But you're right, back in the day, it was like, well, see you later, maybe. Or
maybe, and much later.
Yeah, or shall we write a letter? Oh, man, yeah.
I hope the carrier pigeon finds you with my note.
Carrier pigeon. Well, I think sometimes these big life events give us time to reflect. But also I think self-reflection as a discipline is a good idea. And we can do that at certain times. It might be in our job, or it might be in our life, or we might be reflecting on something that happened or a work project or whatever it is. But I think there's certain techniques or questions that could cascade across no matter what we are reflecting on, whether it's just a wonder why that happened through to the I don't want that to happen again. How do I avoid that in the future? So I thought we could explore some of these things. And I think one of the most important things to do maybe at the beginning is to create space and time to do it properly. Easy to go, let me have a think about that. And we get interrupted by our phone, or there's somebody that's distracting us, so we can't quite get into that zone because we're trying to reflect in a coffee shop, making some notes, while simultaneously paying attention to everything that's going on around us, right? So the vibe and the zone and the feel of where we are can actually help us get into a more reflective state.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always fascinated by the why. So I think there's a paradox here. And the paradox is, if you're going to take time away to self-reflect, you can ask yourself the big questions, and that's really important. But the step before that for me is to pay attention and start noticing the times that you may in the future want to reflect back on. So my example of that is pay attention and notice what's frustrating you in meetings, or pay attention and notice when you feel overwhelmed, or when you're upset, or when you're having what feels like a personality clash with someone, or pay attention and notice why you're getting pissed off when your boss says things in a particular way. Or so having that awareness on first and foremost to start to notice yourself and your body. And then exactly what you say, get the environment right, and we'll talk a bit more about that, and then start to interrogate. And this is where all these tips and tools that you're going to give us today and share with us, they help us. But I think sometimes people go, right, well, I'm going to self-reflect, that's very important. And they do all the things that you're going to share today. We're going to get into that zone, and then they go, okay, so how do I feel? And you're like, how do I feel about what? Whereas if you've sort of kept an internal inventory or audit going on what are the times when you're not feeling your best, or you feel like you're not responding your best, or you're frustrated, make a note of all of those. And then when you go away to your time of reflection, you've got some things to be thinking about or reflecting on because you've brought your consciousness to your niggles. I can think of a number of times in my life where something happens and I get frustrated by it. I'm like, this is the 50th time this has happened. I'd just forgotten until right now. And so you never actually deal with it. So I think this is a way of just checking in on yourself and then setting aside the time.
Yeah. So if we're going to set aside the time, we might eliminate our interruptions. We might prepare an environment where we're on our own and we turn off our devices or whatever that looks like. We might breathe and spend a little bit of time kind of calming our nervous system down. And I also think it's useful sometimes to write even before you start a reflection exercise. Like just identify what's in your head now that would be useful if it wasn't in your head. Like, are you thinking about the fact that you've got to make dinner tonight? Or are you thinking about the fact that you've just had an argument with someone? Or what are those things that we're just replaying? Just write those down and see if you can get your head into a space where you can find some calm, find some time to now start to actually reflect. So I think if you set all that stuff up at the beginning, you're going to get a better outcome than that subconscious distraction that may be happening.
And I think everybody's space will be different in terms of where's a place that you feel the right amount of stimulation and the right amount of relaxation. So for some people, if you went out into the bush in nature, you wouldn't actually be relaxed. Because the whole time you're thinking, that running brook makes me want to pee. Those insects are biting at my feet. I hate the smell of the soggy forest floor. So if you're going to be distracted by the discomfort of that environment, then that's not the right space for you. It might be, there are some beautiful hotels. And you don't have to book a room in the hotel. You can just go into the hotel lobby, and there are sometimes just off the lobby, there'll be a little quiet space. Libraries can be beautiful public spaces. Museums. Think about spaces that inspire you and uplift you, that are free to go and hang out in. Maybe for you it's the surf and nature. Maybe it's a more urban environment. Find what uplifts you and also brings out the best of you. When are you at your best? Because that's an ideal time to reflect, not actually when you're at your worst or your lowest.
Perfect. Love it.
Everything is shit. I'm terrible, and now I'm going to reflect. Not ideal.
Excellent. Okay, so let's assume we've got our perfect environment and we're in the zone, and now we're going to start our reflecting journey. It's useful to actually be more precise and really define what we're reflecting on. Like, what is the thing? So rather than maybe just going open thought, what's in my head? I mean, that could be something you're doing, but it's like, what are you reflecting on? What happened if it was an event? Or what aspect of your life are you reflecting on? Or what thing at work are you reflecting on? And I think write that down. And write it down in as much detail as it takes to get it clear in your head. So I want to reflect on the experience I had the other day when X happened. And actually write that out so that we start to focus it. Your mind can start to focus so much more when you are writing it down, you are putting it out there, so that when you read it back, you go, yes, this is actually where I want to reflect. This is what I want to work on. And it'll be much clearer if you can articulate that in a written way. Once you've got your, starting point and you're clear, then what I find useful at that point is just to write thoughts and feelings that are associated with that thing. What am I experiencing? And that could be anger, sadness, joy, whatever it is. And then you might even go, and at what intensity level are those? And you might have a scale like 1 to 5, like 1 not very intense, 5 really intense. Wrap around thoughts and emotions around the thing. That's quite useful as a reflection exercise as well.
And I think to recognize that you can have a situation where you go through a whole gamut or range of emotions. I mean, I've just come out of a meeting today, and there were times in that meeting where I could have the drone above my head of self-awareness looking down and going, girlfriend, you're on fire. You're making good points. You're articulating this well. You're laying the direction out. This is great. And then probably not just 5 minutes later, I wanted to punch 2 out of the 4 people that were there. And again, the drone of self-awareness, I'm going, why in the moment, I'm thinking, why are you responding like this? Why is this bringing this up for you? And I consciously had the thought in the meeting, you can't actually explore that now. You just need to get back into a really good zone of contributing, but make a note that you need to unpack, Sash, why you're having such a visceral reaction to what just happened. So within one meeting, I've gone from, great, I'm contributing, I'm being clear, to actually I'm now in a really reactive and not empowered state because I'm just getting angry. I'm going to park it, unpack it later. For now, I've got to do something to quickly get back into the meeting, so I take the kind of sour bitch look off my face.
And if we just even unpack the point of reflection in that situation, the exercise can be useful because is it the person or was it something that happened? Because you might just go, oh man, I just hate it when they, is it they or is it the thing, right? Like being able to separate those things. It could just be you're being triggered by a personality type or by a person, or you're being triggered by an action or a pushback or whatever that is. So as we start to look at developing our careers and upping our influence or our ability to negotiate, sit in a meeting, add ideas, explore concepts, sit with tension, it's important to understand, is it personality or is it emotions that come up that trigger? And that self-reflection exercise helps develop us and makes us more well-rounded in those kind of meetings.
And because as we move through our careers, we want to be able to always be thinking about the problem, not the person. So me going, I just want to punch those people in the head. It's not because I can reflect and say it's not because of those people. It's because of the way they are going about this. So I've got 2 things that I can identify. One is I'm frustrated that my work with them is not growing them. They're the same in this meeting as they were in the last meeting. So whatever I'm trying to do to help grow them isn't working. And I want to just be clear, this is not a coffee culture context. Yeah. My team are listening. It's not, no, I'm not talking about any of you. And I take responsibility for not developing the people that I'm with in those meetings. They're not getting any different. So it's the people, but it's not the people. I take it back on myself and go, I need to be helping them grow so that they are able to better handle this situation. I'm really frustrated that we are still handling these situations badly. And then I'm doubly frustrated that I'm now handling it badly because you're handling it badly. Yeah,
that's good.
Does that make any sense?
It totally makes sense. And it kind of leads, I think, quite nicely into another question we can ask ourselves in a self-reflection time. And really, there's no right or wrong questions. It's just perspectives and ideas. But one of them can be, what stories am I telling myself? you might be in a meeting and you might just be going, oh man, men are dicks. I don't know. You might be telling yourself that, and it's probably true, Sash.
You're a mind reader. You are a mind reader, Nostradamus.
Yeah, so it could be that you're telling yourself that story, but actually you might be going, well, actually, I've got great relationships with lots of men in my life.
Ish.
So,
Chris, that's 2.
It's 2 out of 3 billion, ain't bad. So it might be that we tell ourselves these stories, but it could also be the circumstance. So what stories am I telling myself about a situation? Or what stories am I telling myself now that the situation has happened? Because that's the trap I fall into. I like to sometimes ruminate and relive it and tell myself little stories about how I might have done it different, or, well, I wish I had said blah, 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 blah. And I get myself back into that state where I can work myself up. But what's the point? Sometimes it's completely in the past. If it's causing an emotion or a reaction, which is causing a reaction, so I'm reliving it emotively, that's not helping me for next time. Maybe a better reflection exercise would be, why did I react the way I reacted? And once we can identify that, or how would I have wanted to react in a positive way? Like starting to put different lenses and ask different questions on it, suddenly the self-reflection exercise becomes more than just reliving the thing. It becomes something that's useful for future-proofing our skill set.
Self-reflection's not about sort of reliving trauma and going back to those places where you go, I said that dumb thing in the meeting and now I'm going to reflect on it over and over and over and over again. That doesn't help. But I think it's interesting to recognize when we're telling ourselves stories, it's not binary, but I think there are 2 distinct perspectives. And one is the people who self-reflect and make themselves the hero of every situation. So they reflect and go, well, yeah, I had an argument with my boss, teenager, partner, workmate, but on reflection, I was right. So the story they tell is that there was nothing they could have done differently. The other person has the problem. And that may or may not be true. The converse of that is the people who tell themselves stories about how terribly they behaved or how terribly they did in a work situation and that it's all their fault. And so the reflection doesn't lead to any sort of compassion for ourselves, where in actual fact that might be what's called for. So you can think back of a situation where you aren't proud of how you responded, but you can recognize what led you to that point and have some compassion for yourself and also realize that other people have contributed to it. And that's particularly important in a work context, is to be, or even personally, is to be able to say, I own the part that I played in that. And I want to get better. And I think there's some things that you could have done to de-escalate. And you have that conversation once you move past the reflection and decide what you're going to do. But the other thing that I wanted to check in with around this whole stories thing and the ruminating that you're talking about is something that I've completely forgotten. I even wrote it down. I made a note and I wrote down stories. That makes no sense to me now.
I reckon it's going to come back to you and it's just going to be that knowledge bomb you drop at the end and everyone's going to go, whoa!
Well, at the least an opportune moment. I wanted to say when we reflect, we either love ourselves or hate ourselves, and neither of those are helpful. And I wanted to say, oh, yes, I remember. It's really useful to recognise what are the quick solutions when you do the self-reflection, or even in the moment itself, the quick solutions that you come up with that are just surface and unhelpful. So in a work situation, I can recognize sometimes that I find myself thinking, and again, work here, I'm not talking about coffee culture, I'm talking about other organizations that I work with. I think to myself in a meeting, well, it's all going to be better when that person leaves anyway, because it's just that person that's the problem. Yeah. Once that person's changed out, all this problem is going to go away. And often that's not the case. So I think what we sometimes do is we reflect, that meeting didn't go very well, or that conversation's not going great, but don't worry, because we're going to get rid of that person and then everything's going to be fine. So that's an example of like a surface solution that stops us actually delving a bit deeper to say, well, hang on a minute, that's not necessarily the case. You might have a sales problem you're reflecting on, you go, oh, it doesn't matter because next week we're having a sale. Well, temporary Band-Aid. What are the things you tell yourself that are just surface fixes and don't actually get to the heart of the problem?
Yeah, I love that. One of the ways that you can self-reflect in these kind of environments where it's like a sales environment or even a meeting environment is use a tool like a video assessment. So sometimes we use those tools to help salespeople recognize where they might have lost a sale or where they could have dialed up some urgency or a call to action. So being able to listen to an audio or review a video is a really helpful self-reflection tool when it comes to a skill. Like I'm imagining that the FIFA World Cup, they watch that game over and over again to see exactly how they might have done a play different or where people weren't in the position that they could have been. They want to see it so they can reflect on it. Otherwise, they might look back on the game and go, yeah, we played really well. I don't know why we didn't score any goals. And then when you look at the video, you go, oh, wait a second, we didn't score any goals because there's only one person up the front. Everybody else is back in defence. So being able to use little assessment tools like that are useful. And I don't think we should shy away from them because we don't like our voice or I wouldn't want to watch myself on video. Get over it, because the more you can hear yourself, see yourself, take the things that you like, amplify them, take the things that you don't like and de-escalate them or eliminate them, you'll be amazed at how much better you can actually get quicker because of the fact that you're assessing your ability and self-reflecting on that ability.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-minute presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-minute presenter program.
I had someone pitch to me the other day. They've got a product. They're wanting some feedback on whether this product's any good. And I don't think they knew that they were touching their face in some way, shape or form through the entire meeting. Wow. So I remember that at one stage they were sort of having a little nibble on their fingernails. Another time, when you get those wicks. Do you know what a wick is? It's like that little bit there. Okay, so he had a wick on his thumb, and in the middle of pitching, he was trying to get it. And I had the compassion. I knew that this was an extreme pressure situation for him, but I also know that he would not have known that that's what he was doing. It was so subconscious for him. And I would love to have just played a video and say to him, what do you need to work on? Exactly. Sit on your hands. If you have to sit on your hands to make them not be scratching your face. He was tidying his eyebrows, getting stuff out of his eye. I mean, and this was not somebody that had some kind of medical tic. It wasn't like a neurological thing. It was just a nervous thing. And I think if he'd seen himself, you'd pretty quickly get a solution.
Yeah.
Imagine coming into the pitch meeting with handcuffs going, I'm just wearing the handcuffs because when I get nervous, I pick my nose. So, I'm just going to handcuff myself to the desk here because I don't want you to think badly of me. No, you seem very, very normal. I'll give you the money now.
But it's those ticks and those tells, right? Like in poker, people have a tell when they're bluffing, and that's what you try to get good at, not having those tells. But unless you can see them, you can't eliminate them. And what's the quote that people use? I cannot concentrate on what you're saying because of the distraction of what you're doing or the distraction of who you are. And we talk about that in the 30-minute presenter program. How many times do you go see a presenter that just paces backwards and forwards like a caged cougar, or the guy that's got his keys in his pocket and keeps jingling in his pocket that looks like he's doing something else?
It's not what we mean by having fun on stage.
No, that's it. Yeah, I can't even concentrate on what you're saying because I'm so distracted with everything that's going on. And it's that fine line between, authenticity and production. You've got to have some production to get that authenticity, because otherwise there's too many levels of distraction. The musician that can't quite hit the note every now and then ruins the song because no one can relax. Because they suddenly go, is he going to hit the note? Oh, no, they didn't. Or on the strings or whatever it is, and suddenly that's all you hear, right? And you can't enjoy the music, you can't enjoy the song. So those little self-reflection, self-assessment tools are useful. And then you practice once you've got that to eliminate it. It was so funny the other day. My youngest daughter, Emma, she had a job interview for a new job. And we were driving home and I said, okay, why don't we role play your interview? And she goes, I don't want to role play. I want to role play that. And I said, why don't we practice then? She goes, all right. Genius. Right. So anyway, so I go, okay, so we'll practice. So I said, so Emma, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And she goes, well, how am I supposed to answer that? I go, I don't know. But it's probably a
I'm not laughing at you, Emma.
I know. It's probably a question they're going to ask you. I said, well, what do you think you should say? And she goes, oh, I'm a student. I said, well, yeah, why don't you say I'm a year 13 student. I'm in my last year of high school. I'm going to be going to uni next year and I'm going to be studying property and marketing, whatever it is, I said, have some answers for that. And so she goes, oh, okay. So we kind of practiced that a couple of times. And then I said, all right, so Emma, why don't you want to work on Saturday nights? Because that was one thing she put in her CV, that she didn't want to work Saturday nights. And she goes, do you think they'll ask that? I go, well, no, I'd ask that. Like, you're applying for a hospitality job. And so it was so funny. She goes, well, I don't have an answer. I said, well, we should come up with an answer. And so we just worked through all of these things. And afterwards she came out of the interview and I said, how did it go? She goes, oh, it actually went really well. He pretty much asked me all the questions you asked me in the car. But it just that realization of, oh my goodness, if I'd gone into that interview without having some preparation, well, I wouldn't have even known how to answer the questions. So just even little self-reflection exercises through role play or practice can be really, really useful for things.
My sister is amazing at job interviews, and she is really good at coaching others. She's really good if she's got a situation coming up. She'll say, this is coming up. Let's go through it together. That is so smart. It's so smart to go, whoa, how would I answer this? What do you think about this as an answer? Does this make me sound indecisive? Such a clever thing to do. And I have to say nice things about her, because do you know what she told me the other day?
What?
This was not self-reflection. This is like her giving me some feedback. She said, every time I listen to your podcast, you and Ish, I go, yeah, okay, and I need to do the podcast after the podcast to tell people what you're really like.
I love it.
She goes, I'm gonna start a podcast, and after every episode, I'm just gonna go, well, I call bullshit on that one. I said, you do that, honey, you do that.
I wondered where you were going to go when you said your sister was good at job interviews, because I often find that people who are really good at job interviews aren't very good at working.
Well, I couldn't possibly say. All I can say is that my sister, Kyla, is amazing.
Oh, yay, Kyla. Okay. So why don't we just kind of go through just a series of questions a little bit more rapid that you could use in your self-reflection exercise. So we're in our zone, we've cleared our head, we defined what it is we're reflecting on. You could ask questions like, so what was I expecting? Or what was expected of me? What actually happened? What did you make it mean? If it was positive, it's negative, but what did you make it mean? What are you wrapping around it? What went well? What didn't go so well? How did you respond or act? Or how did you wish you had responded or acted? So looking at both sides of that. Are there any ongoing consequences as a result of what happened?
Prison time.
Prison time. What would you have done differently? Who would have been helpful for you to talk to before you had done the thing that you were going to
do? Yeah.
What would have been helpful to know prior to going into the interview or to having that meeting? Where is the opportunity now? What have you learned? I love this one. What advice would you give yourself if you had the opportunity to do that again?
Don't do crime.
Don't get caught. And then what now? Or what next?
Yeah.
Like, what are the next steps? So there's no set of questions, but you could have some questions there that you work through. And the more that you do that, the more helpful it will be, because you'll get a set of questions that work for you to just unpack your thinking, unpack a circumstance, unpack a pattern, And yeah, just kind of self-reflect and get into a zone where we're starting to develop our skill set by not just learning from others, but learning from observing our behavior, observing what happened, because we're smart when we really unpack this kind of stuff.
Experiment with yourself. Treat yourself as the ultimate experiment. Why do you do those things? What are your patterns of behavior? And then you can start, when you understand your motivations behind them, you can then start amending, correcting, adjusting, improving, and being more impactful, more inspirational for those around you. I got a great reflection.
Okay.
I spoke yesterday at the University of Waikato to a delegation from Vietnam, from the Vietnamese government, and the Vietnamese government is communist. And so everyone had titles like the director, like literally the director of truth and propaganda.
Oh, wow.
It was like something like that. And so I was being translated in the moment, so I would speak and then the translator would speak. And I did a lot of reflecting on how that went on my way to Auckland as I drove after. So I thought, oh boy, that was really hard. And I went exactly through this whole thing. Now that I've done it once, what would I do differently? And what should I have done first? And I should have, beforehand with the interpreter, I should have asked her, how long should I speak for before I pause? Because I was speaking too shorter sentences for her to understand the context. So I would say things like, if you want to be a powerful leader, and then I'd pause, and that didn't give her enough to be able to translate it. So I got the hang of it. About 5 minutes in or 10 minutes in, she said, you need to speak for longer, and then I will translate you. And I said, okay. And then about 3/4 of the way through, she looked at me and she said, can you just explain it better? I'm like, oh, yeah, no, okay. Okay, I'll try. And I realised I should have asked some of those questions first. So that was a nice little kind of real life thing that I was unpacking yesterday.
Yeah, simultaneous translation is difficult. Ooh. I don't know how the translators do it. Like, they have to replace them about every sort of 10, 15 minutes, because they're literally listening and speaking. Wow, that's full on. That is full on.
Yeah, the only person they wanted to replace yesterday was me.
I feel like I need to talk about Mission Impossible.
Please, go.
Okay, so I love a bit of Tom Cruise. I really do. Maverick, Top Gun. There's been Tom Cruise movies over the years that I've absolutely loved, including, that remake. But I have to say that the Mission Impossible that I was forced to watch the other day, which was only part 1, was tedious and predictable and boring and I love a Mission Impossible movie. I leant over to Joe at one point. I go, why do they keep stopping and just talking and explaining what's happening? Like, it was that thing, well, if we do this and we do that. And oh man, I was so disappointed. So I'm sorry, Tom, but you didn't get that one right.
Maybe the Mission Impossible is to stay till the end. Because television's got so good, I think we've really been trained for excellent plots, genuine surprises, clever stuff. So if all you're going to do is, drive your own motorbike off a cliff, well, we want more. Feed our brains. Reflect on that, Tommy boy.